Do you want to relive the golden days of Stockton? Join Nate Knott on Stockton Alive every first and third Monday at 6 p.m. Tune into thevoiceofstockton.org.
Hi everyone, this is Dr. Julie Dameron, local veterinarian for over 20 years. I am so excited about my new radio show, Tales and Tips, on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, Voice of Stockton, and KXVS Radio. I will discuss relevant issues affecting animals and pet owners today, how to avoid common problems, and how to extend the quality of life for your cherished companions. As a community advocate, I will also discuss important social issues that affect our city. I plan to showcase organizations and heroes who are doing amazing things to help others. Remember to tune in every Tuesday morning at 10, starting soon.
My name is Miriam, and I am the voice of Stockton.
Welcome to KXVS, the voice of Stockton. It's the Tom Patti reality show with Tom Patti.
Thank you, Governor Don. Hey, I'm so glad to be back here. This is our third show, and it is fantastic to be on the voice of Stockton. And it's an opportunity to speak not only for obviously what's happening in Stockton, but regionally and obviously national, international. We talk about all sorts of things. For some that may not be aware, I am a local business owner. As well, I'm very proud to say that I'm currently serving as a county supervisor here in San Joaquin County, District 3, which is Stockton, Manteca, and Lathrop. So I am thrilled to be part of this show and part of the Voice of Stockton. So in my studio today, I'm really thrilled to have a very strong advocate and proponent and a great Stockton resident and citizen that's dedicated to Stockton's education. We have Steve Smith here. He's serving his 7th year in Stockton Unified School District Board, and Steve, welcome. Really glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the program.
This has been this is our, like I said, our third show, and having you in studio is good because we want to talk about education and all things that are possible. And you're part of that, man. You've done it for so long. 7 years is a good, strong commitment serving on the Stockton School Board. So thanks for doing that. Also have in studio my faithful companion sidekick, my buddy Ted. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Let me just, you're dressed pretty well today. Let me just check. Any food stains on your shirts? Or?
It's still early and I haven't had breakfast. Okay. So yeah.
Good. So no rest this last week?
We're all good.
Okay. Good to have you here. Yes. Well, thanks, buddy. Always a pleasure having you. And, of course, we have in studio our mainstay, Governor Don. So thanks all for being here.
Hey, you're welcome.
Steve, it is an honor to be here with you today. You serve, as Tom said, you're serving your 7th year as a member of the Board of Trustees for the Stockton Unified School District. And I know our viewers, our listeners, look forward to hearing your insights as to what the school district is doing now, what they've done since you've arrived on the board, your initiatives that you're currently working on as you close out your service on the board. You know, we were talking... I was talking to several political consultants here in town, and term limits, they can be a blessing and they can also be a curse. It seems just as individuals become familiar with the process and how the system works, they got to go because the term limits. And I know there are benefits. You don't want to have career politicians, but you also want to have that institutional knowledge. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on term limits at the state and federal level?
Your comment on that on term limits, it's let me get a little bit closer here. Okay, I will. There's an argument on both sides. The argument is you don't want to have career politicians. On the other hand, you have people that have come on board. And I remember when I first came on the board and the Stockton Unified, a gentleman said it's going to take you 2 years to really fully understand what's going on. And I didn't believe him at the time. I thought I was a sharp guy. I've been a small business owner and been self-employed pretty much my whole life. And come to find out he was right. It took a good 2 years to really figure out the system because it's a $500 million system. We have 40,000 students and about 4,000 employees.
40,000 students here in San Joaquin County, in Stockton Unified alone.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's our future.
It is.
I mean,
it
really
is our future.
that's our future. Wow. The 40,000, that's an incredible number.
So by the time 2 years came along, then I was able to get more efficient with what I was doing and figuring out how to get things done. And I'm on my 6th year. I have 1 more year left, and I'm looking at the stop sign within a year thinking, how much can I do within 1 more year to accomplish the things that need to be accomplished? And after that, I'm termed out. So that's the downside to it. The plus side is you let the public vote who needs to be in at the time, whatever the concerns are at the time.
Yeah, and you do appreciate fresh blood and new ideas and perhaps new energy, but it is also difficult to replace that experience, insight, relationships that are built at the county level. I was talking earlier, but at the county level, we've got past county supervisors that just when they're at the height and the pinnacle of their knowledge and momentum and relationships on issues, all of a sudden you're termed out and you are out of that opportunity to best serve your community, and you can't replace those relationships. They're hard. You have to forge them, you have to build them, and amassing all that knowledge, and to then be on the sidelines. It's difficult and it's frustrating, especially for those that are dedicated for the betterment of their community and have forged those inroads.
That's correct. Now, Tom, you had mentioned just a few minutes ago that you're a local business owner that has run for the Board of Supervisors, and you won. I understand they had a meeting this week, and there's some good news on some changes regarding business owners here locally, particularly in Lodi. I was wondering if you could share what happened at the Board of Supervisors this past Tuesday.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. Appreciate that. This last week, we had an opportunity to revisit the wine ordinance that's in place in Lodi, prohibiting and restricting some of the activities and putting in certain mandates that were going to be the guidelines of how businesses operate with wine release parties, accessory events they call them, or weddings, things like that. So we took a real strong look at it, and great staff recommendations, and they've been very steady on the issues and dealing with complaints. And we were happy to see that this past year there were not any complaints at all, 0 complaints. So we started to look at how we could tweak it and make it a little more perhaps business friendly, and a little open up and relax the parameters of operation. So we eased up some of the restrictions, and we expanded some of the opportunities, allowed a little bit more music, extended the times of music, and the occupancy level is now to match what your capacity is for parking, versus some of the limits that were in place where your occupancy was maximized by the amount of people that came through the door on any given day. So for larger wineries, you can have more people. We kind of relaxed. There was a parameter that restricted at a certain party you can only have 80 people. Well, let's say you have a room that can occupy 300 people. Why are you restricted to only 80? So staff, we looked at it again, and staff again came back and they had accomplished what they needed. We got rid of a lot of complaints, and then myself and some of the board members looked at it, reviewed, asked a lot of questions, and we did what I believe is the most business-friendly approach to what we can do to accentuate opportunity. Think about this region. We've got logistics, we've got agriculture, we have many things happening, but here's a booming industry that we want to capitalize on. So what can we do to maximize a business person's opportunity for success? And that's, as the business person and one of them on the board, I really look at that as my main approach. What can we do to accentuate business opportunity? What are we doing to help that person that signs the front of a check, that person that takes out a loan to expand their business and opportunity? They're taking a risk. Are we maximizing their potential, or are we regulating and restricting?
Right. We want to show you want to show San Joaquin County is open for business, and people should not be afraid to dream big. And I believe someone mentioned at that board meeting that Lodi, the region, is actually exploding as a wine as a wine growing region for tourism. There's a lot of wine tourism. There's a tasting rooms that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, and it's great to see that that looks like we're going to be growing that industry thanks to the leadership of the board. Yeah,
it was good. It was a good decision, and we came together on that almost unanimously. But everybody, I think it was a good move for the business person.
And the last number I heard for wineries was about 92 wineries, if I remember right.
No, we're at around 73
70?
or 4. Yeah, I think
73,
it was
74?
in the mid 70s somewhere.
Okay.
But we are being recognized internationally. People are traveling in from globally to come on in. Zinfandels are real big over in Germany and different regions of the world. People are appreciating these wines, and it's through the efforts of the business people that have invested, they've expanded, they've opened up the horizon of their product, and they're seeing the fruits of that labor. It's not happened overnight. It's taken a decade plus to get out there and globally market, but now we are recognized as one of the top wine regions of the world. Mm-hmm. So thanks to the businessman's effort in Lodi. It didn't happen by accident. It's they worked hard to make that happen.
And I'm glad it's getting to be more business friendly. I don't know if you know or not, I'm part of LAVA, Lodi Amateur Vintners Association, and it's home winemakers that get together once a month, about 60 of us, and that's where
really, and
that's where in the last 7 years, 5 of the people went commercial.
Is that right?
Last one was Dan Durst Winery.
Fantastic. And anybody in that group's got to be a pretty smart chemist, as I understand. Is the chemistry is what's the difficult part, which you kind of wonder, why is one wine better than another? And it really has to do with the chemistry of the formula and how it's made.
Mm-hmm. It sure is.
Yeah.
And see, we've been sending our grapes over to Napa, making them successful. So
right.
Finally, the growers said, "Why don't we start our own wineries here?" And they've done a phenomenal job. So I'm glad to hear the board has relaxed some and been more business friendly, because it really benefits all of Lodi and all of this county
and the region. I mean, listen, we want to have a diverse economy. We don't want to be dependent on logistics and agriculture and manufacturing that may or may not be expanding in the region. What else can we do? And this is a business that has many ancillary benefits. I mean, you think about in the hospitality business and hotels and bed and breakfast places opening up and operating. It is a plus all through the economy.
Trucking and maintenance and
everything.
The industries that have nothing to do with wine itself are benefit because of the growing economy in that part of the county. So once again, it's a good move for San Joaquin County.
Yeah.
True. So Steve, I wanted to ask you, talk to me a little bit about and as you know, you and I are working on vocational training. We'll get to that in a bit. But you guys at Stockton Unified, with your 40,000 students, you guys have done some pretty innovative and interesting programs and partnerships. Love for you to share with us some of the scope of what you guys are offering.
Okay, about 8 years ago, my wife and I were looking for a high school for my daughter, and we found Stockton Early College Academy. At that time, it was just an idea going to start the following year. So my wife and I actually helped that school start, and it is now today ranked in the top 2% in all of the United States. It was ranked 26th in California and 178th in the United States. And it basically, what those students do, they get a 4-year degree and they have an AA degree when they graduate. So they've done 2 years of college by the time they graduate in 4 years. So those parents who may not have the ability financially to send their kids to college, they have 2 years already down. And now colleges are saying, we want you. We'll do anything to get you into our college.
How about that? Now, an AA in what? What's the specialty?
General.
Just in general?
Mm-hmm.
How
just
about
in general.
That? And where's this school located? What's the participation? Is it like a little charter high school, or what's the scope of it?
It is what we call a dependent charter. Most people are familiar with independent charters. Someone decides to go start their own charter school. That's an independent. This is actually created from Stockton Unified, so it's a dependent. It's one of our charter schools that we run, but the umbilical cord's not as tight on this school as other schools, because they need to be run like a charter school. A little more freedom, a little to do and be creative on what they want to do. There's about 500 students now in this high school.
And where is it serving the community? What location?
It is kitty corner to St. Joe's Hospital. It's on that intersection. It's on the southwest corner.
Fantastic.
And we occupy. There's the old theater is there and still standing.
I'll be darned. That's great. And I know you guys also have a program, which I was almost thinking that's what you were describing over at Stag High. There's another. Was it a Pacific Law High School or Law Academy? Explain that one.
Right.
That's also innovative.
That is. That was actually right across the street from Humphreys College, and we decided to move it over to Stag High School. It's Pacific Law Academy, and we have about 200 students that attend Pacific Law Academy, and it is also ranked. Actually, SECA was ranked gold, and PLA, Pacific Law Academy, was ranked silver in the United States. So it's another top school we have here in Stockton. And these students are going into the law industry many different ways. It's not just becoming a lawyer. It's anything to do with law whatsoever.
So like paralegal, maybe even defense investigation or
Absolutely.
criminal investigation work, and paralegal and legal secretary.
Yes.
Wow, that's
Yes.
incredible.
And we're trying to build more relationships so we can get the community in the law community to really be part of that school.
That's fantastic. Now, what else? You've got, I mean, there's things, innovation going on at what's this school? Edison. I'm sorry, I went blank for a moment. Edison, which my next door neighbor is the president, Brian Biederman, and so Edison's doing some I mean, just throughout all this education system, you guys are doing some innovative things.
We are. Edison has just a brand new building in engineering, and it's phenomenal what they've done there. I need to go down there and really look at it a little bit more in depth, but it has turned out some phenomenal students there. Also on Stagg High School is Public Safety Academy, and this was a passion of mine for a number of years, and finally we were able to put that together. Any student who wants to be involved in the public safety, police, sheriff, highway patrol, firemen, and we actually put that out there. The interesting thing, it's also a charter school, or it's not. It is somewhat of like a charter school, but we started with 5th through 8th grade because we figured anybody who's going to walk around in a uniform, we're probably not going to get high schoolers walking around in a uniform, but they needed to have at least a few years before they get into high school the regimen in a uniform and the exercise program. And it has been absolutely fantastic. It's a year old. The 8th graders are now 9th graders, and we have about 200 students in that, looking to grow it to about 680 to 800. Could be maxed out at 800, but we'll probably end up at about 600 students. And some of them, most of them, will probably go into a police career of some kind, whatever that looks like. But even the ones that don't, the education, the service part of that, if they're not as a policeman, for instance, but what kind of a citizen they're going to be? They're going to be absolutely unbelievable citizens.
That's outstanding.
If you've been part of Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts, it's very similar to that.
A lot of the same principles.
It is.
By the way, a friend of mine who's one of the senior advisors and district leaders in the Cub Scouts has been contacted by the school system. And I'm not sure if it was through Stockton Unified that they wanted to start bringing the Boy Scouts into after-school programs on campus.
Yes.
Is that part of what you guys are doing?
Yes, it is.
That's through Stockton Unified?
And I'm the one that actually was able to bring that person in, and now we started in the summer school programs through, I think it was Team, if I remember it. There's a program out there, and now we're starting to get it through into the schools this year. And the parents are saying, absolutely, we want our students, our children to be part of it.
And these are building blocks. When you're learning how to make things and do things in crafts and construction and little projects, all of a sudden you get more and more confidence. You know how to use tools and hands-on and being self-reliant and serving your community in some way, making something better. I remember being a Boy Scout, a little Cub Scout, and you had your little Bobcat pin, and it was upside down, and you could only turn it right side right until you did something good that day. And then I remember doing something perhaps bad, and you had to turn it back upside down if you maybe were you said something or did something that wasn't friendly to another classmate or something.
Yes,
we won't go into that. There could be some opposition researchers listening to the show. So.
True, but these are just great principles. They're time tested, and it just help develop character and better citizens. That's the great building blocks. That's phenomenal. Ted, you want to say something?
Oh, I was going to say earlier this, actually, I guess it was just a month ago, you, Supervisor, you had convened a meeting of community leaders, not just elected officials, but education officials within the classroom, administrators, and other elected officials, not just fellow board members. I believe Supervisor Miguel Villaputa was in attendance, members of the Stockton City Council and other city councils, law enforcement. You have an idea for a vocational education center, and I was wondering if you could tell the viewers and listeners a little bit on that initiative that you've introduced to members of the community. It sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yes, I am working on that with Steve, of course, through Stockton Unified School District. I've got Carl Tolliver, a lifelong educator and administrator and leader in local schools, as well as Jeff Wright, who has the Jeff Wright Academy of Construction and Engineering and Construction over Lincoln High School. Excuse me. So the three of us, Mr. Tolliver, Jeff Wright, and myself, serve on the Delta College Foundation Board, and we were talking about this, and this was a campaign issue that I ran on, and it's something that you have discussion after discussion, but what action can we be taking to make a difference? I recently visited several months ago an academy called the Cypress Mandela Academy in Oakland. And there's a fellow named Art Shank that for 24 or 5 years has been running programs, getting kids out of gangs, off the streets, giving them basically a pre-apprentice program and a pathway to success, to a successful life. And he's at a phenomenal success rate. So you start to look at programs that are out there, and you want to replicate that success, of course. And then you look at where are shortages, where's the gap. Talking with Jose Rodriguez at El Concilio, he says, with that 18 to 26-year-old, I think we're missing something there. And then you start to find out even at the high school level, and talking with you, Steve, that there's a lot of schools that I know several 25, 30 years ago, they took out all the shop classes that automotive and metal and wood and even probably photography and just all these things that used to be exposed in high school. And since then, they've now realized, of course, not everybody's going to go to college. Not everybody is going to get that degree. And we do need people in the service industry. Myself being a tradesman from operating cranes as my business would mandate, but I've also grown up working sheet metal and plastics and welding and sweeping floors. And I mean, you name it. I grew up digging ditches and working in my dad's company. And these are trades that you have. I mean, I can weld, I can do electrical, I can do sheet metal, I can do crane operating, I can install signs. I mean, these are trades that are needed every day, and these are jobs every day throughout the community that are missing. So we need to fill that gap, and there's a big void. What is Stockton Unified doing? What do you see the vision? I know we've done some meetings, and we're doing some analysis on how we are currently serving and where perhaps the gaps might be. Where's Stockton Unified on this issue of vocational training, or CTE as you guys call it, career training education?
Not as far as I'd like to see it, but we do some of it throughout all of our high schools, but it's done in small little segments. To give some history, about 30% of our students are prepared for college, which leaves 70% of our students either are not prepared or they may not go to college. So a career is what they need to have, I believe. And a lot of the students don't realize, or most people don't realize. I hired a welder to weld some stainless steel on one of my customers in Lodi with a new brewery. And I asked him, I said, "So what does a welder make?" He says, "About $125,000 a year."
Yeah.
Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
And there are some good occupations out there. Stockton Unified has an auto shop at Stagg. It's for the special ed, and probably 35 students. We have wood shop in Edison. We have wood and welding in Franklin High School. But again, it's catering to maybe 5-8% of the students. Mm-hmm. It's not giving, I don't believe, what our students need. The problem with that is it's very, very expensive. Here we have 4 comprehensive high schools. If you set up a career technical education at one of those schools, we could not afford to do 4 of them.
Right.
So do you do it at one, and then the other one, if Franklin's saying, "Where's mine?" it gets difficult.
Right, and that's where we come in with doing some research of how to best serve. Where's the gaps and needs? What can we do and have an impact that's going to reverberate? And my idea that I've looked at and seen, and you would know about this as well, Steve. But I guess they're called ROPs in Fremont. I went to go visit one where there was a myriad of careers in medical, child development, shop, construction. I mean, you name it. There was computer sciences, and the kids, they serve over 5,000 students annually go through there for their elective classes. And when you talk about statistics, I read this recently about, I think it was roughly, and it's give or take a couple percent, because I think it's actually higher now. But last report I had read a while back was that 40% of kids drop out of college within the first year, and only 30% that graduate. And I know the dropout rate increases before you get to graduation, but only 30% that graduate ever utilize the degree they graduate with. So you can graduate with all of this debt and never even use the degree you graduate with. So career paths are opportunities, and they are future, and learning trades and skills are absolutely mandatory and necessary.
This community needs students that have these abilities. Most of the contractors right now are just absolutely screaming for people, not just bodies, but people that understand what they're doing. If it's construction, do they know how to cut wood? Or what I had to learn the hard way was measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
That was my wood shop. I realized that wood and Steve do not get along.
You cannot fill the gaps, and you cannot extend that wood once that cut is made.
No, I do business from Bakersfield all the way to Reno, and that's one of the biggest problems is that the students either don't have the education of any type of career whatsoever. They haven't even tasted it, touched it of any kind, and they realize that maybe they've gone to college and they're having a hard time finding a job in that field. So they say, well, let me do some construction until I can get into my whatever the field it is. And they have no education, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
But if they can get some in the high school level and get kind of a salad bar of what's a metal shop, wood shop, auto, how do I change my oil, things like that, at least they can fall back on something until they can get their career going.
Hey, no matter what I've ever done in all of my journeys and adventures and careers, I've always known that I can always install signs, I can always manufacture, I can always operate cranes, and it's something that I fell back on. It was something that I had in my back pocket. I worked since I was a little kid and learned all of these trades, and I was able to find employment and find stability when needed.
Mm-hmm. And a couple of these schools that we started, really what we did was we actually sent from the Boy Scouts, actually, it was a form for students to fill out to say what 2 occupations am I interested in and what sports and things like that. We pulled that together and found out some of these occupations that they're interested. Then we went to the community, not just Stockton, not just San Joaquin, but California, the United States, and what careers are in need of people. And health careers was one of them that popped up. So that's why we married the two. And the community is so involved in the Health Careers Academy. If Stockton ever decided to shut the school down, which they will not, that school will not stop because the community is so involved. Same with Public Safety Academy. Policemen show up there on a daily basis. Highway Patrol, Sheriff. They're so it's not just a school as an island. It's ingrained. But career technical, I believe we need to have a career CTE program. We need to have something like that in Stockton also, where the businesses are part of it.
And to exactly that point, as you say, and up and down the valley, there are businesses that are crying out for workers. I mean, they need people that are trainable. They need people with good work ethic, and that's also one of the things that are missing. A lot of this generation is not used to. They don't know what it's like to get up and work. Perhaps they don't even have a role model that's exemplified. Getting up, going to work, and coming home at the end of the day and doing a good, honest day's work. So there's challenges there. But what I really appreciate about this community is because there's challenges from so many angles, people do step up, and they are willing to reinvent what's being done and how can we do it better. So I'm really appreciating not only what you guys are doing on the school board, but the community participation on the private level and in the private sector as well as in the public. It makes a profound impact for sure. What else is on the horizon? What do you see at Stockton Unified? Some of the challenges, the dropout rates. How's that trending lately? And what's been effective throughout the school system to combat that?
The dropout rate is a concern. It's getting better as each year goes by. What we're doing, for instance, for those students who do get in trouble, and we used to suspend them, send them home for 3 days. Now, I just went back in my mind as a kid. Let's see, if I did something bad and I went home for 3 days, my mom and dad aren't home, I'm on the streets for 3 days. Isn't that an encouragement? So
it's almost like a reward for breaking the rules.
It is, and it's unfortunate because when the student comes back after 3 days back in the classroom, they're 3 days behind everybody else, and then it just keeps perpetuating. So about 5 years ago now, I came up with in-house suspension for the elementary students. So when they get in trouble, they don't go home. They go into another classroom where they have a teacher who, lack of a better word, is a drill sergeant. Get in, sit down. You're gonna behave. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be here. You want to be back in your classroom. Right. So behave. They also need to know the curriculum. So whatever the student was going to learn that day, they're getting it in that in-house suspension class. Some of them need some counseling. Some of them have some.
Well, they're acting out because they've got issues that are.
They do. Family, whatever the case is.
Yeah, challenges.
Yeah. And it has absolutely been a success. Our suspension rate has dropped considerably.
That's a major impact, doing something just as simple as that.
Yes. And the last thing we looked at was we're actually saving a lot of money because every time a student goes home, we don't get ADA money on that. And that wasn't the drive. The drive was,
Right.
how do we get our student
How
all
do you
the way
best
through
serve?
the system?
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do we help the student advance?
And actually, it's costing us money, but it's a good investment.
It's
really
a fantastic investment. Wow, that's that, and that has a profound impact because you are bringing some services. You're also bringing some accountability to them, and you're expecting them to step up and deliver during that time, not just being rewarded to sit home and watch TV.
Exactly. And what we found out was they really want to be at school and they really want to be there. They just needed some guidance and someone to say, this is really what you need, and some good structure,
Yeah,
I guess.
Outstanding. That's great to see that.
Well, it's always good to see creative ways to boost interest in school and learning and the culture of education for the students. I think that's if the old ways aren't working, you have to make a change to see what will. And I think it's a good thing that we're Stockton Unified School District, that the community is trying to find alternative ways to improve education and to improve student involvement and parental involvement in their child's success in the classroom.
Well, and you never know where a mentor comes from. Somebody that has a profound impact. It could be, I mean, we all look back, we remember students and that student-teacher relationship. You remember that one teacher that took an interest, that spent that extra minute. I had two of my aunts, but one of them, Renata Carrasco, she was the teacher for 30 plus years over at Annunciation. And she retired from teaching and became a private tutor. And she goes, after teaching for 30-something years, I didn't realize until I was working with these kids one-on-one and tutoring them, how each child really truly needs a little different outreach, a little different way to communicate, a little different way to touch them in the learning process. She goes, after 30 years as an educator, she goes, I've really finally had that one-on-one with some of these students on a big rate. So that she wasn't in the classroom with the big class, but she was spending several hours a day tutoring them and realizing that profound impact that it had in their education process.
In preparation for today's show, I was looking at one of the reasons why Tom Patti was so interested in education isn't simply because of the initiatives that he's trying to work with other community leaders in implementing, but did you know he represents his constituency covers 4 large school districts, more than any other county supervisor in San Joaquin County. He represents Lodi Unified School District, Lincoln Unified School District, Stockton Unified School District, and Manteca Unified School District. So that's a lot of principals, a lot of trustees, a lot of parents of students with children in those districts, those school districts. So it's a very large constituency, and and each district, of course, is a little bit different. How are you getting to know your new school districts and the trustees that serve on them?
Well, it's a lot of one-on-one meetings, a lot of lunch meetings, sitting down, chatting, talking, finding out what's going on, what's new, what their challenges are, and how we can help. And again, you find out that you see people, and I'm sure, Steve, as you've worked with multiple personalities on your school board, people do rise to the occasion. People step up, they get involved, and they are engaged in the process of how to make it better. And that's what I'm pleased to see when you meet with the school board members and the principals and teachers, administrators. I see a lot of commitment. I do see people that genuinely care. I don't see a huge disconnect, that people are just going through the motion. I'm usually around the people because I'm around so many extracurricular activities. I'm around the people that are involved. They're not just going there from morning to afternoon and going home and taking care of their responsibilities, of course, and their own lives. I see the people that are at the fundraisers. I see the people that are committed, that are going above and beyond and building those relationships with those students. And so I'm seeing firsthand those students, the mentors, and the impact they're having in the community. And that excites me. That I'm pleased to see. I don't, when you look at 40,000 students, of course it would be great to see an army of 40,000 students throughout the community doing great, but I'm impressed by those that I do see that are involved. And I always look at, what can we do? What more can we do? We have, and I am on the board with Supervisor Kathy Miller. We have the Children's Alliance that we're working on. It's been 2 years, so I've served this last year. And she's taken the lead and done a great job. And I really have to compliment her on the breakdown of and the scope of analysis, gaps and needs, best practices, and of course it goes down to funding. And we're really coming to the finish line of where we're heading and how it correlates with successful education and graduation and such. And we're looking at that as really narrowing it down to that 0 to 5. What can we do before they enter the school system that has an impact? I mean, you enter kindergarten, and if you're already behind the norm of where most kids are, that's the beginning of where your problems are going to be. So what are we doing not only for prenatal care, what are we doing in that, those early learning and those crucial development stages that a child has in their growing up environment.
In the first 5 years of
those first
life.
5.
Yeah.
And I'm proud. Then you look at advancing a little bit, but I'm proud to be a Rotarian, and we give dictionaries to every third grader. We go in, we give them a story. There's a little story that we give a presentation about that talks about the principles of Rotary. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Does it build goodwill and better relationships? And is it beneficial to all concerned? Those are 4 tenets of Rotarians. And so we have a little story that talks about that, and then we go in and we present them with dictionaries. So we have a little relationship building with them, and every child has a dictionary, and that's a passport to education. That's something that's yours. Take this this is yours. Have you ever? I always tell them, raise your hand if you've ever been bored. So 90% of the kids will raise their hand. You ever said, you ever think you're bored? They raise their hand. Okay, said, well, only boring people are bored. Right? Here's a passport to education. You have an opportunity to learn every single day, and then pick a page. And there's our dictionaries. There's a history of every president, and where they're from, and how they became, how they ran, and what they accomplished as a president, and just little biographies, things like that. But that's that extra level of involvement that you see throughout the community that has an impact.
And I noticed Rotary Read-In is coming up. Well, it's in 5 months, but it takes a lot of planning because a lot of members of your Rotary Club go to elementary schools in Stockton Unified School District and others in the county and read to school children. I think that's another fantastic program.
Yeah, and there are, I know we've talked about in the past, there's other service industries that do, service organizations that do a lot of community outreach and have an impact. And I am proud to be a Rotarian and doing what we do. I think last year our Read to Me program that we do throughout the school, but also we have the we have another program. We gave out, I think, 17,000 books last year to children from 1 to 5 years old. They get a book a month. And we're averaging, I think it's around 15 to 17,000 books annually that we send every month to over, forgive my numbers, I think it's 700 or 800 families.
Wow.
That we get books to every year.
Read to Me Stockton is another wonderful organization. In fact, the current interim superintendent of Stockton Unified School District, Dan Wright, is a board member of Read to Me Stockton. He sounds like a very interesting guy. I'd love to meet him someday.
Very much so.
Yes. At this point, I do believe we have reached the end of this week's episode. Steve, would you care to add anything? I understand.
We have a few more minutes.
Oh, we do? Okay.
So I will throw in one of the fun things that I enjoy. I've had an opportunity to own motorcycles, and they are dangerous. I'm not advocating for them, but I've had an opportunity to own motorcycles when I lived in New York City and in Los Angeles. And it just my motorcycle sat around for the last couple of years, having run for office and having zero free time. But recently, Steve, you made a new purchase in your life. Tell me about that.
I did. Actually, when I was in the Army, I had 3 motorcycles. It was my only transportation for 2 years. And obviously I sold those, finally grew up and got a car.
Yeah.
And moved back home, got married to my lovely wife, and she wasn't too fond of motorcycles. And we had children, and she said, no motorcycle, you have to take care of the kids. And then college. Well, one's out of college, the other one's is starting college, so I figured it's time to take care of Dad here after 40 years. So it was, I bought a motorcycle.
And this was done with or without your wife's approval?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to tell you a secret about this, okay? I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. Don't be enthusiastic or too joyful about riding motorcycles. Complain about it as often as possible, about the maintenance, the upkeep, how unenjoyable the ride may have been, so that way it's not going to be something that might perhaps be a large opposing object of your interest.
Good advice, but I found something else interesting. After my first ride in the ride you and I took, I came home, was walking around the house and getting some projects done, and after about an hour she said, you're really relaxed, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. And she kind of liked that.
Oh,
so there's a positive.
Win-win, absolutely. And you took care of your some responsibilities.
Still got the projects done.
Yeah, and we did take a great ride. I was going to say that because of you, I dusted off my my old Harley FXR and took it out for a ride. And we had a great ride up to Jackson and through the mountains and a couple back roads. And it was just a beautiful day for riding. And I thank you for that. And I look forward to more rides. You were a fantastic riding partner. And just the view and what a great pleasure to be living in the region that we live and have just right within miles of us some great open roads and good, fresh, clean air.
It's just one of those feelings of freedom, and then obviously we thank God we live in a free country. And it just kind of goes side and side, goes hand in hand.
True.
Yep.
Great mode. And I will reiterate, as I said, I had a motorcycle in Manhattan, and I did about almost 2,000 miles, about 1,500 miles a year in Manhattan. And it was just, I rode year round, and it was one of those great joys in my life when I look back, as I just jump on my bike, ride over wherever I wanted, park a bike, get off, have dinner, be in Little Italy in a minute, go uptown and ride through Central Park in the middle of the night when it was closed off, jump a little barricade, zip around to Central Park and just enjoy the freedom of having a bike in Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
Yeah, it was truly one of the best times riding bikes back then.
Mine was the complete opposite. I was in the Army. I was living in northern Florida, and I lived pretty much basically on the beach. So that was the view we had the whole time, was white beaches all the way down Highway 98. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I used to ride another riding experience. I used to live in Los Angeles, and a friend of mine, Bob Katz, had about 45 vintage bikes, Ariels, Nortons, Indians, you name it. And his regular riding partner to this day is Jay Leno. So on Sundays, we'd get on bikes, we'd dust off one of them, clean it up, fire them up, and ride old Triumphs or you name it. We'd jump on different bikes and ride up through the canyon, Malibu canyons, up through by the ocean, ride up to the Malibu canyons and back. And Leno was a good rider. And a real advocate for he's, as you know, he has his show on TV about all of his cars and motorcycles and such. But those were fun times as well. The ocean riding is great.
So he's a genuine collector. That's not just
he's had passion for many years about it, and we always saw him and rode with him regularly because he's a gearhead. He loves mechanics and vehicles and he's really into it. So it was fun. He was always a good, interesting guy to be around.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned our ride up to the foothills. I have friends all around the United States, and they say, "Why do you live in California?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you." I said, "We can water ski in 5 minutes. We can snow ski in 2 hours. Go to the beach in 2 hours. Go to San Francisco in 1.5 to 2 hours. Yosemite in 3. Climb Mount Whitney in 5." And up the gold country up here in the foothills where we ride our motorcycles. You can't beat it.
We are lucky and blessed to live where we are, and we have a great, growing, thriving community, and I'm proud to be part of it. And Steve, I want to thank you for being here. Ted, as usual, my trusty sidekick. I appreciate you being here. Governor Don making this show happen, but being part of the Voice of Stockton on KXVS, this is the thrill, and I enjoy it every week. So thank you all for listening and being part of our show.